Have you ever felt betrayed by someone's silence, only to later find out that they intentionally kept crucial information from you? Maybe they left something out. Maybe they didn't tell you certain detail. Maybe you've wondered if silence can be just as deceptive as a spoken lie. You've had people lie to you. You've had him lie to you over and over and over again. But then there's times where there was no lie there. There was no like aspect of saying, no, I didn't do this, or completely telling the opposite. There just wasn't anything. And we're going to talk today about this aspect of lying by omission and explore the impact and the relationships that it affects by when a person shows up by just omitting certain things, omitting certain points that could be helpful or could be beneficial in this honesty piece. But is omission really lying? What does that actually look like? If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness about narcissistic abuse. I'm the founder of Raw Motivations and your guide in the 45-day Clarity Challenge you can access at claritychallenge.net. To break free from the rumination, the trauma bond, those pieces, the intrusive thoughts, we help you rewire the story that you tell yourself so you can ultimately get free and no longer have the triggers control you. Don't just take my word for it. Go to claritychallenge.net today and hear from other people that have signed up as well. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, rate, review. If you're listening on the podcast today, thanks so much. Please share this with someone else who might be struggling with this topic of dealing with a liar or dealing with someone who's just admitting the truth, like omitting the truth, what is actually happening there. Okay, all right, let's dive in. So unpacking lying by omission. So lying by omission refers to the act of deliberately withholding relevant information or important facts that could impact a person's understanding of a situation or relationship. Blah, that seemed like a lot. Okay, let's break it down a little bit more. Okay, when we talk about omitting, we're just talking about leaving out information that you need to know. Okay, and then it's like, well, who defines what you need to know? Who defines what's relevant? Who defines what's not relevant? So typically it's something in the relationship world, in the toxic world, of something that is going to impact you in a negative way. Okay, like this could affect you in a way that would hurt you. Now, the hard part is you're with a toxic person who has mentioned and who has said, like, either I forget things or it's not that big of a deal or all these things. And then all of a sudden something comes out and you're like, wait a second, that is a big deal. Like, that hurts me that you cheated on me. Like, did you not think that was a big deal? Like, oh, I forgot. Like, there's so many different excuses. But this whole piece of, like, omitting piece of the truth so that it doesn't actually impact you in a negative way. So it doesn't, from the narcissist side, quote unquote, hurt you, right? This idea of like wanting to avoid this oftentimes is just a piece of avoiding accountability, responsibility from the narcissist's behavior. Like, I need to avoid being accountable. I need to avoid what's actually going on so I don't have to own up to what I actually did. So let me omit it out of there. So oftentimes you're going to see this as being the person that says that is intentionally silent on matters that they should be openly communicated. This leads to more of deception, more of misrepresentation, to be able to look a certain way or to appear a certain way or to not be held accountable for certain things. Okay? Now, there's a lot of nuances. I'm going to try to cover different pieces of it about a narcissist lying by omission. A lot of it is like, a lot of times what they say, like, I don't want to hurt you. Like, I did this to protect you. Like, I forgot. Like, I didn't want to tell you about this because I knew it would affect you. It would hurt you. I was doing this to be able to save you, like, hurt. Like, there's a lot of different pieces that will try to flip it around to make themselves seem like the good person by still lying to you. Okay, it's wild, but this is how it happens. Okay, think of it this way. In the relationship, he never discloses that he's still in contact with his ex-partner. So, like, you've been dating, going back and forth for a little bit now, and you all of a sudden stumble across something on his phone that he's still texting his ex-partner. He's still talking to her on a daily basis, but he avoids the topic altogether. Like, he leaves you unaware of what's actually going on and the emotional ties that are still between him and his ex. Okay? It's not a lie because he's not being like, oh, are you talking to your ex? And he's like, no, I'm not talking to my ex. You're not asking all those questions. He's just avoiding bringing it up. Okay, this is one unique piece of narcissist lying. When you have a narcissist, a toxic person in your life that's like, ask me anything, I'll tell you the truth. Like, ask me anything, I'll be honest, I'll be transparent. Just ask me anything. They're typically lying. You're like, huh? Well, how does that make sense? The reason why a toxic person does that is because when you start to ask, they understand by the questions and by the style and by how you're asking what you actually know and what you don't know, which lets them control the narrative and contract the story that they need to contract so that they can get away with what they need to get away with. So there's the aspect of like, I'm going to admit stuff because it's easier to go back on that and be able to change the narrative around than it is to get caught in a blatant lie. So a narcissist wants to know what you know to be able to avoid being held accountable. And so as a result, trying to leave you unaware of what's actually going on so you can continue to do the things he wants you to do. Now, sometimes you're going to have narcissists that are like, oh yeah, I forgot. But the hard part is this forgetting piece is something that ends up being very intentional that they'll say is not intentional. Well, I didn't intend to hurt you. I didn't intend to come across as lying. I didn't think that I was coming across that way. I didn't realize I was coming across that way. But there also wasn't a level of intention that said, I am going to avoid this. Well, the conversation, we talk about this in several different aspects. The conversation of intention going to go both ways. Narcissists will be like, I didn't intend to hurt you. And you can be like, well, you didn't intend not to hurt me by actually telling me the truth and being open and transparent about what you were doing. But they'll typically try to flip it around back on you to make it seem like, oh, like it wasn't me. And then you start feeling bad for the fact that they admitted and they actually lied to you about what was actually going on. So what's actually going on behind the silence? Okay, lying by omission is this tactic and it's strategic to be able to maintain control and power over you. To be able to control the narrative of what's happening. By concealing the information, they avoid accountability, consequences, responsibility. They avoid being in uncomfortable conversations that might challenge the mask that they're putting up there. Because they've built this facade. They've built this image that looks good. Why would they want to be able to have that break down? And so when you come to the table and you're like, yeah, I'm going to break down this image by holding you accountable for something, they're like, whoa, nope, can't have that. And so he's typically going to go through life omitting certain things. So like I would communicate, yeah, I'm going to the store. Would I communicate that I met up with someone else while I was at the store? No, not at all. I would omit that out because that's not a comfortable truth that I want to communicate to my wife. So like I would go through these relationships and I would go into these affairs and I would omit certain things. You have to understand the liar that's in your life is always going to be, the best liar out there is always going to be the closest to the truth. Like he's going to communicate 99 things that are 100% true, and the 1% is going to be the biggest thing that's going to hurt you. But it's not going to be something that he brings up or something that you even think to ask. You shouldn't have to think like, I need to ask 100 questions. Did you cheat on me? No. Did you look at someone? No. Did you have sex with someone? No. Did you kiss someone? No. Did you, like, you have to go through 100 questions just to figure out like, oh yeah, well I sort of cheated on you with an emotional affair that turned into a physical affair, last week. You're like, well, why didn't you tell me that? Well, you didn't ask me that question. You'll see this. You're going to have a narcissist that hides different information from you. Oftentimes I'll talk about the cheating because that's the frame of reference that I come from, but hide different things like financial information. Credit card debt. Like you'll never have a clue of the debt that you're actually in because of what he's actually doing, how he's hiding it, keeping it from you. Like there'll be this illusion of like, oh, we've got financial stability and avoid facing consequences of the irresponsible behavior. You see this in so many different aspects. This has a huge impact on your trust, on intimacy. Lying by omission erodes trust within a relationship. Like it is still a lie. It is still something that breaks down because it creates this atmosphere of uncertainty and suspicion. You're left not knowing what to actually believe. When he consistently withholds information, it makes you feel isolated, it makes you feel invalidated, and it makes it unable to form decisions about the relationship and unable to move forward in a relationship. I normally communicate, if you're with someone that is a liar, you do not have a relationship. You're in a situation with someone that is a facade and you don't know who you're even with. You could even see this where you discover that he's been hiding a substance abuse issue. Maybe he's drinking, he's hiding behind your back, maybe he's doing drugs and you've been together for months or years and you didn't realize he was doing drugs. The shock and the betrayal that you feel due to the silence leads to broken trust and emotional distance in the relationship, and oftentimes is the beginning of the demise of the relationship. Because if there is not an aspect of being able to have truth in the relationship, there is no relationship. Like, if you don't take anything from this video, but just this, if you cannot have trust between you and your partner, and that is an active, ongoing, growing thing, you do not have a relationship. You are stuck in a toxic, trauma-bonded relationship that will only leave you broken and hurt moving forward because that person is not willing to actually stand up and be a man by being honest. This is what I preach, this is what I teach, this is what I show people, is the way we get to the truth of this is dealing with the facts. Is he actually showing up as an honest person? You're like, well, I'm not sure, but I'm uneasy. I have doubts. How is he working on actually dissuading those doubts? By showing up honestly, by being vulnerable, by having intention of how he's showing up in an honest and transparent way. Because you'll have a narcissist that's like, I'll be honest. Okay, show me your phone. No, that's my private space. I'll be honest. Okay, well then tell me where you were. Well, now I was here. Okay, but then what about this? You'll start to poke holes in people that are dishonest. You need to understand, if you're with someone that is not honest, vulnerable, or showing that consistency in their change and growth, you're not in a relationship. And you need to leave. This piece about lying is one of the biggest things that is going to rip apart your relationship, rip apart our society, rip apart the world, because people are not willing to tell the truth. But instead, they'd rather lie, sedate, omit, and run from the truth. Don't let that be you that's impacted that negative way in the relationship, or that stays running from the truth because it feels too hard to hear. We offer a way out mentally and emotionally for you to work through the trauma bond, the rumination, the intrusive thoughts. Go to claritychallenge.net now to be able to see how we help transform lives in breaking free from the toxicity that controls them on a day-to-day basis.